Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. First thing on the agenda, we have, okay.
Two items.
Yeah, I want to approve the agenda. Any additions or changes or?
So we have one letter late from the member of the APC, David Hawking, regarding Lot 1. So for item 5.3.
Okay.
And a second on the table is a letter from Peter Fenton regarding item 5.3.
Okay. Thank you, Steph. Go ahead.
Mover and a second, yeah.
Okay, moving, do I hear a mover and a second for the agenda? Okay, Christie moves, David?
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, okay. Minutes. Everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Do I have a motion? David Wrench?
Sure.
David? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous?
Right.
Okay, great. Okay, public comments. Do we want to do the public comments right now or while the item, that particular item? Go ahead now.
Well, normally you do it at the beginning.
Yeah, so it's on our agenda, so yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Okay, Peter Friend.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Peter Fenton, I live adjacent to Belterra and adjacent to Area 2 of Lot 1. So I want to apologize for providing a torrent of information and which is not something that I want to do. So the thing that I sent today is sort of a rehash, but you know, in it what I wanted to say was you have a very important role as the APC, and it is independent, and it's really one of council asking your advice. And so you should be putting yourself in the position of the public and going, do these things meet the public good? And that's always the litmus test. And it's great. I really enjoyed being on the APC and chaired it for 3 years. So there's quite a lot in your agenda tonight, and I'm speaking to Lot 1, or yeah, Lot 1. I think there's quite a lot of public feedback because there were 2 public information meetings held. And my advice to the APC is to take heed of public sentiment as it's expressed. And council has already made some amendments as a result of those. I'll just stop. Is it okay? Yeah. The council's already made some amendments to the bylaws as a result of that, reducing the size of the light industrial buildings and changing some setbacks and whatnot. I think the big one that it was lost in that or hasn't been addressed is that the idea that residential be permitted as a principal use as opposed to being an accessory use in area 1. And the reason for that, I think, is being articulated by a number of people, and it is because of its location being so good and central that it makes sense to have it there. Also, I looked up the zoning for Function Junction and actually went to look at some of the buildings there. And there are standalone residences. So even if there is light industrial or artisanal or warehousing, that it is still not unheard of to have that mix and to have housing which is standalone. And in fact, up there it's both employee housing and it was non-market or capital reduced housing that people could purchase into. So I had said before that I didn't think it was a great idea to have any industrial there, and I temper that now and think, yeah, it's okay, but mix it, because really the primary need that has been demonstrated is residential and particularly low affordable. So with area 2, I think the message that comes back was head scratching, which is why you're doing this. It doesn't really seem to add up very well. It's sort of a tough build site. It's a narrow triangle. You've got setback problems. You've got this road which is hard. It's not that it shouldn't be developed. In fact, I was on council when we purchased the land, as was Dave Rich, and it was always looked at that would be a receiver area for density and that it would be residential. But it seems to me premature, and I think that if you're trying to make a bunch of money, it's going to be hard to make a bunch of money, and I think another approach is to have requests for proposals or some other way to actually gauge what the interest is in developing that land. Area 3, I think, really is best left alone, although I believe that down at the bottom you could actually expand the works yard with another bench. And area 4, again, because it's in the ALR, even though it isn't good ALR land, it is a connector, and given the history of the Land Commission and their hard line that they take, I think it's not worth the effort to be trying to push that rock uphill and to just hive it off and sell it for the most you can. That seems pretty clean and straightforward. So those are really my comments on that, except for one other, and that is sort of the whole idea of approaching to planning. And I think this is where, as the APC, you can really think about this. Normally what it is you have a developer who comes and makes a proposal. In this case, the developer is in fact the municipality. And so it's a difficult situation. And blanket zoning to permit as wide things, which is what has been done so far twice with Lot 2 and with Lot 3. Some of that has not been thought through very well, and some of it hasn't been tested yet to see how well it'll work. So where the community center is slated to go is also zoned to allow apartment buildings. Well, I don't know of anybody who thought that was a great idea to have apartment buildings up there. So I just I wonder why it is that there is such an urgency to press forward on this, on all of this, instead of breaking it down and doing it sequentially, doing it in response to need. So that's a different approach. Certainly, doing something with a demo with an affordable housing project, like bringing in a bunch of pre-manufactured homes or approving a complex, which I know is intended for Lot 2 if there's a partner with BC Housing. But that is maybe another approach to do it. So with that, I'll sign off and leave you to deliberations, but I do hope you read through what the public commentary is and recognize what your role is and the opportunity you have to make this a better bylaw. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Shall we take, I guess, the items in order of the agenda?
Yeah.
391 Salal Road rezoning. There was a tour of the site, and I was on that tour, and it was an interesting one. We sort of checked out where a logical trail and connection might be. And I think that has the Trails and Parks Committee met yet to deal with that?
They met last week, and I didn't attend that meeting.
They have made some comments. Would you like to hear them?
Yes, please.
Okay. they make comments before,
Well, there, you included something from,
last month?
Yeah.
Okay, so
no, from, in this pack.
There was something in
Jeremy's
here
notes.
and there was a discussion about a trail, it would be to the east, close to the opposite edge of the area that the original trail was proposed, that would
So
connect
there was a
across.
lot of, I'm actually looking at
Sorrel.
unedited notes here, 'cause
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
done those yet, but all I have for the recommendation is that the proposed trail easement be beneficial to the municipality,
Yeah.
and that the easement be wider than 3 meters.
Oh,
There was extensive conversation, I think where they whittled it down to is trusting staff making those kinds of
Of how wide it should be.
decisions. Yeah,
okay.
I think these are very rough notes, so I think we maybe just leave it for the
Well,
ABC to
I-
make their comments, and
Okay.
Daniel can just.
Well, there was a recommended trail location out of that meeting. And,
I think that's you see on page 15 of your package is where Jeremy's provided a map showing like a sort of trail across the properties on the bottom left of that map. And it shows like the corner of the property and then a trail. So it kind of goes across the southern part. Like if you were to divide, here, I'll just go to Solal here. So this is the property in question. It looks like his trail
It's on the
goes-
second slide, Drew.
goes
it
sort of
is, yeah, in the
You know,
very south, or the lower left-hand corner is the trail in, right? That's that little dash line that says our hike February 4th.
yeah.
Corner pin. That is the preferred location. It was shown up going into the Word Creek and across, which is not a good location. So I think Mr. Lord thought that was a good idea. That was a trail that they had originally cleared, and it certainly had a lot of attractive amenities. There were a couple crossings which needed to be treated, but otherwise it was a very good trail. I suppose, I'm thinking that was the major issue, as I recall from our last discussion, was what would the amenity package be? How would that work? Because it was very unclear with the OCP maps, which just sort of took lines and said we need to make connections, but clearly that wasn't the line location, the proper location. So I think there's a agreement on that as a location. And unless there's any more comments about or suggestions about the subdivision.
So I'll say, sorry, Dave, so on the minutes from the last meeting, that's on the page 5, and so there's basically 3 points of the discussion, of the APC discussion from that. So one was the importance to determine that a trail dedication would be functional. So I think that's probably what the Parks and Trails addressed in their site visit. They thought that yes, the trail of this would be functional and something they wanted. And the next two are about should an amenity worth more than the trail be offered, and then suggested alternative amenities. So I think in terms of, the Parks and Trails maybe it has given their view on, yes, this is a desired trail, and then but the APC can make recommendations they think that's great, and that maybe that's enough to go to council, or do you think should there be more, should we be asking for, or whatever the case may be. I think maybe that's the APC discussion.
Yeah, Kirsty, you were up.
I'm happy with it, yeah. I think that it's a good trail, and it'll attach, link into potential trails on Crown land, and also to go south if, eventually.
Okay.
So I think that's good, and I think that's certainly enough for him to offer that.
Okay.
Well, the second and third comments from last meeting were made by me about whether or not a little strip of land through a piece of property is a suitable amenity to have their area rezoned and double the value of their land. It strikes me that when you have a zoning area that somebody buys, and then they apply for upgrading, there should be some cost. And I don't think that little strip of land is justifiable. They'll probably make $300,000 or $400,000 on dividing that land in half. And when you're granting an upzoning or upgrading of land, I think somebody should have to pay for it. Or at least make some other amenity, a contribution to the community center or something along that line.
Okay, the lot that they have, as I understand the history of it, is that they had bought that land and built their house on a big lot. And then the subdivision came in, and that land next to them was all subdivided into smaller lots.
Yeah, as a part of that, so you can see them on the map, right? This is the original sort of the 5 acre, and these are the 2.5 acre lots on this side. As part of that rezoning to do it, they did place, so all these lots have now have quite significant environmental covenants on them. So when they were originally these 5 acre lots, there was no sort of setbacks from the acre. So they now all have no build lines that run across and counted areas and stuff. They're sort of protected areas, and that was part of the rezoning talking about smaller lots was more sort of extensive protection on them. This one was left out because it had already sold and so it wasn't included. But so when you look at the map and you say, oh gee, these olive gardens are half the size, there are sort of restrictions that they placed on their property as a condition of getting that increased density.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Just for some background.
But that would have happened anyway because that's a water source. Like it wasn't really that they were giving anything up.
Not necessarily, no.
Not to that extent.
Not to that extent, and not like, it's possible the municipality could have placed setbacks from Josephine Lake or something on it as part of a bylaw, but at the time when they came to the rezoning, that wasn't part of it. And so that was part of their offer, essentially, was environmental protections on the land.
The rezoning was done before the municipality was formed, and it was done according to Ministry of Transportation and Highway standards, so there were no setbacks from
The original subdivision.
Okay. Any more?
Get a lot more taxes out of the land with 2 properties.
Of course, at the same time, they've avoided more taxes by holding it as one piece.
Did
They own it as one piece.
David, did you want to make a recommendation on that, or?
Yeah, I think
Or is
an
it just-
increased amenity should be requested.
What amenity would you suggest?
Well, certainly, there's no point in asking for a portion of the land, but financial amenity towards the community center or something along that line. I don't think it should be a horrendous amount, but something.
Or constructing the trail or
What
something?
kind of shapes that trail in? They need bridges and all
I
that
don't
stuff?
know, I was
No,
in
it doesn't need any
Mexico.
bridges, but it needs a better footing.
Yeah, some crossing of wet areas, and not sure whether it needs to be stone pads or whether it be a little wooden
Gravel, I
bridge or
think, would
something.
probably.
Well, perhaps even ask the owners of property to actually bring the trail up to a standard acceptable to the Trails Committee.
Sure. I think that would be reasonable. Is
any further discussion? Do we need a motion?
I think we would need a motion, to come back to council and say, you support going forward with this application, and you support the trail dedication, and you recommend that as part of it, that, I don't know how to say it, but something about, as part of it going forward, you'd want to see the trail upgraded as an amenity.
Yeah, to parks and.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
to
park
standards.
standards.
Yeah.
Okay. Would,
Excuse me?
Mhm.
yes?
Can
Good.
I just get is David Rich happy with that as an amenity that way?
Yeah, Yes.
Okay,
Peter?
okay. Thank you, David.
Do you want to make a motion then,
I
David?
got one.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I can't make them.
Um, Okay, so whereas the Advisory Planning Commission supports the 391 Salal rezoning application, therefore be resolved that the APC recommend that the property owner bring the trail standards up to the standards of the Parks Committee,
Parks Department.
Parks Trails.
Parks Department.
Oh, I see. It's
They have the standards, yeah.
I can get the synonym for that.
Well,
Do you want to be more specific than up to the standards,
Well-
such as footings and
I don't think so, we
construction?
just say.
Because they're, yeah, everything's different, all the trails are,
Or to monetize it, or say with material and labor?
No, you can't do that. Just
No, I would just say up to standard as a condition of the rezoning.
As a condition of the lease. Okay. Okay,
okay, David, do you want to repeat that? And then David, would you like to make that motion, I guess?
Okay.
that the APC supports his application and recommended the property owner bring the trail standards up to the standard of the Parks Department as a condition of the rezoning.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
True.
Okay, Kirsty. All in favor? Are you in favor, Drew?
Yes, I'm in favor.
You're waving your hand in the air?
I'm waving my both hands in the air. Do I get 2 votes?
Just don't fall.
Okay.
who's gonna decide where that, I mean, obviously you agreed to that trail location, as depicted by what, I don't know, how that's all gonna
Okay.
happen.
Well, connectors and it's well,
Yeah,
starting and all.
the Parks Trail Connector as recommended by the Trails Committee, I guess.
yeah, that guy that wrote the letter, whatever his name is.
Jeremy.
Jeremy, yeah. Jeremy, because he seems quite comfortable with the location of it.
Okay.
And it was
That
actually
should
where,
suffice then.
yeah, and it was actually where John wanted it, or
Mhm.
suggested.
So do you want to say trail standard and location then?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's what we voted on, yeah.
Friendly amendment, yeah.
yeah.
Friendly.
Very
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
Wow.
And done and done.
You're good.
Okay.
Guys.
Next.
great, thanks.
So moving on to the next,
Next item?
and Drew, the next presentation then, the Lot 1 PowerPoint I sent you in the second email.
Yeah, I just opened that PowerPoint, thank you.
Awesome. Should we do that again?
Rich?
Oh, sorry. I thought you had a
This
pen.
one up first.
Okay. So many
We have too many
computers. What are we gonna
laptops.
do?
in these-
Hey?
We have too many laptops going.
Come on.
The information age, it's
Yeah.
time for
Yeah.
that.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we discussed this at ABC in our November 20th meeting. And so since then, I've been to, as you'll see in the report, all of our committees, to a neighborhood meeting and an open house, to the Bowen Children's Center board meeting. I think that was it. And so on February 13th, we had a committee of the whole meeting for, I want to say 2 hours or 3 hours.
It was 5.
Yeah, and then we had
time.
yeah another meeting that evening. Again, the council meetings. You'll see in the letter. Essentially, I've got a list of all the motions that council made in terms of amendments to make to the Lot 1, to these 2 bylaws. So I'll try to give you. I won't go through sort of the comments people made. It's in the report, but that sort of drove all the amendments. So Lot 1, as we know, along Mount Garden Road, just past Lewis and
He's looking
Bix.
at the location slide for,
Yeah, recycling center, the works yard, Terminal Creek crosses here, Guild Creek through here. This is Carter Road. It zigzags up through the property and then continues along to join Grafton Road. Obviously, it's zoned RR1, and then EOCP it's R rural. This is council resolution. So February 13th, council gave first reading to the 2 bylaws. as amended, and they referred the bylaws to ABC and a number of other agencies for comment. So this is what I put in the cover letter. So I'm just going to, this is sort of my high level of some of the changes that were made to the bylaws. So in area 1, they reduced the maximum size of buildings to 1,000 square meters, and they made the changes to the development permit guidelines that were recommended by APC at the last meeting. They also amended Area 1 by moving the western boundary of Area 1 to the east side of the Cove Bay water line. So before the boundary was on Terminal Creek, and now it's been moved in. I'll show you this slide in a sec. Area 2 reduced the setback to Carter Road and increased the setback to Belterra. So that's essentially reducing the setback along Carter Road here and increasing it here, and just slightly alter where it would be built. And to remove detached dwelling as a permitted building type. So before it allowed attached or detached. And we had lots of comments saying they wanted additional clustering in that area. As well as, I didn't put it here, but changes to increase the maximum size of dwelling in that area, but include then a maximum average dwelling size of 1,200 square feet. So allow some variation in size, but have the overall average remain the same in terms of how much building allowed. And then in area 4, council had heard from the Islands Trust and from the ALC comments about the idea of excluding that area from the agricultural land reserve. So council said, okay, we're not going to actually go forward with that exclusion application. Instead, we'll change area 4 to simply be what would be allowed in the agricultural land reserve. So a single family home allows agriculture and horticulture and allows bed and breakfast with up to 4 guest bedrooms, and just proceed in that manner. And council may decide after it's rezoned, they may want to apply again to the ALC and try it out. But in terms of this zoning, should just go forward with what's allowed in the ALR. So this is the change then to Area 1. So before the boundary had been along Terminal Creek, so it's been drawn in to the other side of the water line. So that's in part to buffer the trail that comes down and the back of the children's center that's there. And then sort of also recognizing that probably building the water line in some ways acts as a barrier to development to begin with, so it's moved outside of that.
Daniel?
Yes, Drew.
Here's a question. On slide 8, the 4 areas are identified.
Yeah.
However, when I look at the location drawing, what appears to be area 1 comes much closer to the gas station than it does on slide 8. Which one is correct?
Sorry, on slide 8 versus on slide...
The location, slide 2.
Slide 8 versus slide 3. In slide 3, area 1 goes almost up to the municipal works yard.
So slide 8 is correct.
In slide 8, there's an apparent lot line which is quite a bit further closer to Bix.
Yeah. So on
we got our water line that comes right through.
So slide 3 is just the same one. So it'd be slide 8 is the updated one.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one I just left in from before. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing it. The quality, audio quality is not too good.
Why don't we put you right beside Daniel
Daniel.
for this part at least?
Okay, Andrew.
Hi, I'm being moved around like a little,
Yeah.
a little square guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So then area 1, and I realized I put dwelling in here because I copied over from the bylaw, so that's wrong. But the other change the council did make is they included dwelling as an accessory use in area 1. So not a principal use. Yeah, but dwelling use is an accessory use. So then area 1, as it is now, most of this is unchanged. So the lot coverage 35%, FSR 0.7. Maximum size of building is now 1,000 square meters. They still have this maximum size of residential component of a live-work unit to be 90 square meters. Still the same conditions of use on it. And development permit guidelines are as recommended by the APC at the last meeting. So area 2 then remains largely the same, still for up to 20 dwelling uses, 20 dwelling units. It now only permits attached dwellings rather than attached and detached. Lot coverage decreased slightly. And as I said, the maximum dwelling size is 140 square meters, which is 1,500 square feet. And then the maximum average of 115, so 1,200 square foot average dwelling size.
So attached dwellings means like a duplex?
It could be duplex or
more,
yeah.
yeah.
So if somebody still came and said, well, we want to do lots of spread out things, they could do 10 duplexes. You couldn't do 20 tiny homes now, but you could do 10 duplexes, yeah.
So your maximum building size includes a bank of townhouses with 10,000 square feet, essentially.
Yeah, Area 2 doesn't have a maximum building size, it's just maximum size would be, you can build 115 square meters times 20.
115 square meters, that's 1,200.
It's 1,200 square feet, yeah. And so finally, Area 4 then is simplified, so dwelling uses, it allows dwelling use as a principal use. It largely mirrors just SR2 zone, which is our normal settlement residential 2 zone, except it allows agriculture and horticulture, so it's uses permitted in the agricultural land reserve. So that's now the amended bylaw 433.
And only part of it's in the ALR, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, this is essentially the ALR.
Oh, okay, so the whole of Area 4
The whole of Area 4 is in, yeah. Or, no, I apologize. It's
At least
this,
60%, yeah.
It's a line that runs like this.
Yeah, that's
across
right.
here.
From there out.
Yeah, it says ALR.
Yeah, it essentially continues this straight line straight across.
So rather than hassle with trying to do a transfer on the ALR and everything, we just took it right out, not to bother with it. We've already had one recheck on it.
Is getting that done a slam dunk, or is that,
For the ALR?
yeah?
Absolutely not, we had a recheck on John Reed's.
So the
Their hands on the
Grafton
government
Lake
did.
got turned down,
Yeah,
and essentially the decision was, they looked at the application and they said, you can farm land that you're trying to exclude, and so we don't permit it, and so we turned down.
Because it's farmable.
Because it's
Because it's
farmable.
arable.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is, sticking to their mandate, right?
Yeah.
They protect farmable,
Yeah.
arable land, so you can't take it out, so.
I don't think there's anything farmable on Area 4, but rather than go through the hassle.
Yeah, when I talked to them as part of the referral, they were talking to, it's essentially, you can do like an agrologist report, and you can do sort of studies and bring all that information to say, it's not viable to farm it. But
It's not a very, it's kind of low hanging fruit because it's not good for much out there. That was why we sort of just said, put a single family residence.
So, could I say something?
Yes.
It seems that the big question here, there's an opportunity, this has come back to the APC, and the real question, the questions seem to be focusing on the Area 1 parcel and the proposed use on that parcel. And I was concerned, the last time we saw it, I was concerned about the potential, building size. And I see that the building size is now 1,000 square meters maximum, which is a 10,000 square foot building, which is still a big building. I think as an ATC we have an opportunity here to maybe rethink this, should we wish to. Has everyone had a chance to read David Hawking's email?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think David makes some good points there. Sitting with this myself, I think there's two things. I think at first blush, I don't think that the municipality should be in the business of creating parcels of land for any kind of development that is not a community-related use. That would be like my first cut. Like it should be a community center. It should be something, a facility that is going to serve the community. The other mandate, I think Frenton pointed to this, is that the land could be sold to industrial use in this location, so close to the cove, begs a lot of questions, I think. Why do we need an industrial zone so close to the cove? It is still a walkable distance from this area into the cove. So I want to sort of go back and say, having said what I said about what the municipality should be doing with its land, I think we're at a time, we're at a crossroad. Everywhere I go, everyone I speak to, the conversation is all about the lack of some form of housing for people who can live in the community and support the community in its way forward. So the need is for housing, the need is not for warehouses. And if there were a need for warehouses, I'm not sure this is the right place for them. So, I'm thinking that the APC should be giving us some more serious thought, and so maybe it's providing a little bit different guidance to council about this particular parcel.
Where would you suggest any light industrial might go?
Sorry, is that Gary?
Yes.
Everybody sounds like they're a little bit like they're underwater. So we finally got that swimming pool. Sorry, Gary, so I didn't understand what you said, Gary.
Where would you suggest the light industrial would go then? I mean, it's just a matter of what we have in community lands and trying to.
My question would be, Gary, why is the municipality trying to use their land for industrial uses?
I think